Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another review. Today, we're going to be talking about the newest film and the first film from YouTuber Chris Stuckmann called Shelby Oaks. For anybody that doesn't know, Chris Stuckmann kind of was the pioneer, really, that started this whole YouTube thing when it comes to talking about movies. He was really one of the first people I ever found when it came to looking up movie reviews and things like that, because honestly, I didn't even know YouTube, at the time could be used for anything like that. I was like, just on here for like funny videos and whatever else you could find. So when I first came across his channel, I remember just like obsessing like over watching his reviews and just going through his catalog and seeing what he thought of, different reviews and movies and whatnot. Now, he had plenty of movie tastes that were completely different than mine. There was plenty of movies that he really disliked that I ended up really liking and stuff. And I mean, that's the beauty of art altogether. I never, was mad or anything that he had a difference of opinion. That's the whole point of art to begin with. But I thought it was really cool that he was going to be making his own movie. And I think that's a really cool step to take, to being able to, go on to review movies and discussing movies, to actually sitting down and writing and creating your own movie. And, there's something really inspirational about that. As somebody that loves film and really wants to direct something, I've always just had this itch about me of wanting to direct. And so seeing him do that, that's a big inspiration for that. And I think it's really cool that he actually got to make his movie. Now, I know that there was some controversy a few years ago because of the whole thing where he decided not to, review all movies anymore. He wasn't going to give negative reviews and all that stuff like that. That's a whole different thing. I understand why people had, certain opinions towards that. I totally get it. But I'm not here to comment on that or anything like that. I'm just here to strictly talk about his movie. So Shelby Oaks follows the story of a woman who is searching for her sister. Her sister was a paranormal investigator for a channel on YouTube, and she has gone missing in the town of Shelby Oaks. Now, normally when I first get out of a movie, I have a little bit of time to let stuff process and figure out how I feel about things. But this one I legit just walked out of, and I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really good, and I really enjoyed what he was able to do with the budget he was given. Obviously, this is a small independent movie, so obviously you're going to see those certain signs of a small independent movie throughout it, but it doesn't do anything to take away from it. It's still a solid, beautifully shot film. And I really enjoyed the different types of filmmaking he did in this movie. Like, he has a little bit of the found footage, he has a little bit of the mockumentary style, and then you just have a regular film. And I think he was able to navigate those and bob and weave perfectly throughout it, to where it doesn't feel like such a shock to the system when it switches from found footage to a regular movie, and it's able to go back and forth in this nice organic way where it's not like just takes you out like you're watching a completely different movie. And I thought he did a really good job of being able to pull that off. I thought it was cool too how throughout the movie, when they're doing like this mockumentary style for like these news footage coverage and all that stuff like that, how if you were kind of in the realm of YouTube and you knew some of these YouTubers, like there was some familiar YouTubers that popped up in the movie that I was like, oh, that's cool, to see that person in there. And at one point, his wife makes an appearance, and with I think both of their sons, and that was just a really cool nod. And I'm pretty sure Chris Stuckmann has a little cameo in this. It's not fully him, but at one point there's a voiceover for something, and I'm pretty sure that was him. I'm about 99% sure that was his voice. So it's kind of cool that he was able to kind of interweave all these things while also paying homage to kind of YouTube itself, because in the movie, the sister Riley, this channel that she has, it's on YouTube. So this whole ghost hunting thing is all these episodes on YouTube. And it was kind of a cool nod to that. It was kind of a cool ode to, YouTube and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really cool thing to be able to intertwine all this stuff together. I think the story of this movie is really cool and really unique. It has a very eerie feel about it, even from the get-go when you're in this found footage, mockumentary style. There's just something really eerie about the whole thing, and I love that Chris was able to capture that really honestly throughout the entire movie. And one of the other things I really appreciated as it got more towards the end of the movie is that I love how our main character, no matter where she goes in this town of Shelby Oaks, or even when she's not even in Shelby Oaks, there's this feeling that she's never alone. There's always this feeling that she's always being watched by something. There's always something behind her. And as the audience members, I feel like that starts to affect us as well, to where we kind of start to get that feeling as well, that there's always somebody behind us or watching us. We just never feel safe throughout the majority of the movie. And I think that's a great way of putting us in the shoes of that character, because as the movie goes on, like I said, no matter where she goes, you never feel safe. Even when it's just daylight outside, there's that feeling of unease that she is never safe. There's always something or someone there with her, watching her, and it can pop up at any given time. I think the performances all around was really great in this movie. The actress that plays Mia, Camille Sullivan, I feel like she does a really, really great job of being able to portray all these different emotions that she has to go through, because she has to go through a lot of different ones, and I feel like she pulls it off so well, because I believed every single emotion that she was giving, down to all the sadness that she felt, down to the fear that she would feel during these scenes, and then even down to the frustration of, wanting to find her sister. And even this, like I said, the scenes where she has to be scared, I feel she plays it so well, because there's even scenes where she's having almost it looks like full body convulsions because she's shaking so much, and she pulls that off so well. And like I said, I believed every single emotion that she gave. While I liked everybody else's performance in this movie, like, a lot of people don't get a lot of time to shine other than, Mia and the actress that plays Riley, which I believe her name is Sarah Dern. Those are really our two leads. I mean, you get more of Camille than you do of Sarah throughout the movie, obviously, because Sarah is the one that they're looking for throughout the movie. So you have these other characters throughout the movie, and you don't really know a lot about them. You see them here and there, but I mean, I bought into the performances that we do get from them. And there's an actor that plays the husband of Mia. He's kind of there throughout the movie. He doesn't have a lot to do, but he is believable in the scenes that he is in. I do really want to talk about the atmosphere of this movie. I know I kind of mentioned it when I was talking about that feeling of dread throughout earlier, but this movie has a great atmosphere to it, about this like abandoned town. The town itself is almost like an urban legend, and it kind of leaves you to where you don't know a lot about it, but it leaves you wanting more. And I think that's a great way of kind of pulling the audience in, because as for me, I really wanted to know more about this town. I mean, we know a little bit about it from what the characters have told us throughout the movie, and like why it's abandoned and stuff like that. But I feel like there's more of a history there that I think can be dug into. That I would be curious if something ever, happens with this movie, whether it be like not really like a prequel or maybe a sequel or something like that. I don't know if that's something Chris would ever do. And I know, given the budget of this movie, you can't do everything. So I mean, that's obvious, but I like the aesthetic of the town. I like that atmosphere about it. I love the vibe that it gives off. It just gives off like that creepy eeriness of dread throughout. Because as I said earlier, I believe there is this from the beginning. It's like that feeling of you're always being watched, that our main character is never safe, and that kind of carries, like I said, throughout the entire movie. But also, it does a great job of building this tension throughout that kind of builds within the audience as well, and does a great job of wanting to it's like, hurry up and get the scare over with. And Chris does a great job of the scares that I like a lot, where it will linger on certain shots. It'll hold on dark hallways or doorways, and just kind of let you live in the darkness a little bit. And I think he does. I love that about horror movies, and he does it in a really, really cool way in this movie. It's the same way throughout the score for the movie, how I kind of felt how I did during the movie Good Boy, how there's certain scenes when he knows to play the music to kind of help build that tension, and there's other scenes where he chooses just to let it be completely silent. And those moments where it is just silent, it is almost like, as an audience member, you are having trouble breathing, because you are just as scared as our main character in this movie. There's a particular scene, without giving anything away, where Mia is in the town of Shelby Oaks, and she has to go investigate this prison. And that's all I'm going to say about the scene, but that scene in particular does such a great job of building so much tension throughout, and it is like utterly just scary, and really gets under your skin. and it just keeps, racking up that tension the more and more time you spend in that prison, between, just sounds in the distance or creaking here and there, and just the overall silence throughout it is just so eerie. I think, to me, there's also subtle nods throughout this movie for other horror films, obviously, and I know one of them is Lake Mungo. That's a big one that even Chris has mentioned before, and you see that a little bit in the mockumentary style of the movie. And again, if you have not seen Lake Mungo, highly recommend it. Especially a great watch around Halloween. And the one obvious one to me was Blair Witch. Any of the found footage stuff and certain things that they do with that found footage, I think pays a nice homage to the original Blair Witch. And one that I really got, that it was just for a moment, it wasn't throughout the whole movie, that particularly the scene where she's in the prison, because the prison is supposed to be like real decayed and really just run down looking. I got vibes of Silent Hill, because it was almost like she's going into this deserted town. And obviously, if you've seen Silent Hill, it's the same vibe as that, going into this, old, decrepit, decayed, like dead town pretty much. And while we don't get to see a lot of the town, I'll get into that later, but it is cool to see. It was cool in that moment to where when she's in this prison, to where I was like, this feels like almost like Silent Hill-ish. I don't know if that movie was ever in Chris's arsenal for inspiration or not, but I feel like, it might not have been a nod to that, but that's kind of the vibe I picked up from it. So I'd be curious to see what other people pick up from it. And to me, there was a small, nice nod to The Shining. I don't know, again, if that was something he was going for. It's real subtle, and it's just a little change to it, but to me, I was like, it was kind of a nice just tip of the hat to The Shining, so I thought that was really cool. And I love the way that he was able to kind of pay homage to these movies that mean something to him, that he grew up with, or that he really found his inspiration in. So I thought it was cool that he was able to pay homage and give, their flowers and stuff throughout this movie while he's doing his own thing. I thought that was a really cool thing to do and to put in there. Now, there is something throughout this movie that you do see, and I think it's really creepy and really well done, and I'm so happy Chris chose to leave it in the shadows. It's one of those things where you don't ever see directly on, and because sometimes the way people can shoot things or choose to reveal things can really take you out of it, especially if you see it and if it's done in a certain way. He didn't go that route at all. He keeps stuff in the shadows, or he keeps it in that grainy found footage style, which I think works so well for some kind of, like, especially creature demon thing that you want to do. And it's very, very creepy. And I did hear where Chris said that this is a movie kind of like in the vein of Longlegs, to where that creature pops up throughout the entire movie. So this is a movie that really merits a rewatch, especially for somebody like me, that I can go back and try to examine every frame of this movie, trying to figure out where that thing pops up at throughout it, because he said it was in the background of a lot of shots throughout the movie. So that's something for me that excites me to go and rewatch, because I can be like, ooh, now I get to play this game of trying to pick this stuff out. And I think it was cool because when I showed some of my friends Longlegs for the first time, they did the same thing. I told them beforehand that you see pretty much Satan in the different parts of the movie throughout. And so every time they would see one, we'd be like, ooh, or we'd have to rewind it. So we almost made like this game out of it, and I think it added this experience to the movie. So I think this movie might be able to do, follow in the same vein as that, which I think is a really cool thing to add. Which is another thing that I really love about this movie. Again, Chris does something that I really love in horror films, that I love it when you have those type of movies where your eyes are just all over the frame, scanning every single inch of the frame, trying to see if there's something there. Because our character will be either in the middle with this wide shot behind her, or our character will be kind of this way or this way, but not in the center of the frame, but you have all of this wide open space around it. And that just leaves so much for your mind to start wondering, okay, what's going to happen? Is something going to be there? Is something going to be here? And you start to, like me, like I said, I will examine every single, frame of this to try to figure out if there is something or if I missed something. And I know without a doubt that I missed a lot throughout this movie. I know that there was probably stuff hidden in certain frames that I missed. I know for sure there was, obviously, since he said that they were in, that thing was in frames of this movie, I know that I missed some, but I was looking so hard throughout the movie for them, and I did catch one that I'm proud of. It was just a real quick shot, but you could see the well, I don't want to say anything what it was, but you can see a certain something in the back that kind of, gives it away, and I was like, ooh, so I was happy that I caught one. So I love that element to it because it gives so much rewatchability, and I love that feeling of all those shots of in horror movies where it's got those wide shots with our character right there, because again it adds to the tension of it, and that's the type of horror and scary that I love in movies like this, especially like those shots like I mentioned earlier where a character will leave a room and you just see the door and like two windows and a dark hallway, and it just stays there and lingers on it, because it kind of, you have to adjust your eyes, to kind of be like, is there really something there? Did I really see something? Or, my mind playing tricks on me? And again, it does that thing where you're like, I don't know if something's about to pop out, if it's going to be like a simple scare where it just kind of shows something go by. And that's the beauty of it. You don't really know what type of scare it's going to be. And he does that at different points in this movie. And again, kudos to him, because that's the type of horror that I really enjoy. There's only really one, I really wouldn't even call it a negative. I would really call it a nitpick, and it's really just a personal thing for me. And I know it's not Chris's fault, because it's, probably the budget and stuff like that I knew that, he's limited on what you can do. But I wish that, for me, I wish we got a little bit more of the town of Shelby Oaks. Like, it's built up throughout this movie, and, they talk so much about the urban legend and stuff that's gone on in the town and how they think the town is haunted. And you get these great shots of how massive this town really is. And I feel like we don't get enough of the town. And it's the same way when Mia finally shows up in Shelby Oaks to look for her sister. We really only get two locations, and it's when she goes to the prison and when she goes to a particular house. And I feel like if we would have had more of Mia going through the town, and if they were anything like that prison sequence, you could have easily added so much more tension to the movie. Not saying that the movie wasn't tension-filled to begin with. I just think there was so much more there to be explored when it came to the town of Shelby Oaks, because, like I said, of how massive the town looked overall. But again, I know with budget restraints and whatnot that, you obviously can't shoot everything. And for all I know, this could have been something that Chris originally had in the script to do that in the movie, and, had to cut it back because of, budget and stuff like that. So it's, like I said, that's just a nitpick for me. But for me, as a nitpick, I would have loved to have seen just a little bit more of the town. I would love to have seen Mia exploring a little bit more of the town, or Riley exploring more of the town and more of her, found footage style thing. But as Mia exploring it, I feel like, I know most of it would have been like abandoned and run down, but I feel like you could have, like I said, I feel like there was a lot of untapped scares that you could have done with that. Another thing I feel like for some people, I think this movie will be considered a slow burn for them, and it kind of is a slow burn because it builds a good majority of the movie getting into Shelby Oaks and building up this story of her really trying to find her sister, why she needs to find her sister. And, for a lot of people now, they're just here for the jump scares and things of that nature, and this movie is not that. While, yes, there is jump scares and stuff throughout this movie really does a great job of building up this story and just building this tension as you go. And sadly, I know for a lot of people, that just doesn't work because they feel like in slow burn movies, nothing really happens and it really builds to nothing and, yada yada and all that stuff. Personally, I don't get that. Don't get me wrong. There is some slow burn movies out there that I am like, holy crap, let's get to it, and that just don't work for me. But I'm a huge advocate for slow burn movies, and I really have grown to love them over the past few years. And that's kind of where my taste has gone. Maybe because I've seen so many of these like slower movies, and they've just really had more of an effect on me than some of the big budget studio movies with a lot of jump scares and whatnot. And I'm not saying those movies aren't good, because there is a ton of good ones out there. I feel like my taste has kind of shifted in more of that A24 neon, the horror that Neon's doing style and whatnot like that. So that's why I believe maybe this movie worked for me, where I feel like maybe it won't work for some people, because I just have that gut feeling where a lot of people is going to think it's just too slow. But for me, like I said, just based on the mood and the atmosphere and this just mystery story, it does such a great job of building all that, and it keeps building to the point to where you're never bored or anything like that. At least I wasn't, because the story is so intriguing. I love horror and mystery. I think the two of them go so well together. And especially a movie like this that has almost like this ghost town element to it, but you also have a mystery and like this shrouded urban legend throughout this town. I think all those elements work really well together, and to me, it just helps fuel the fire of your story even more. So for me, I have to say I really enjoyed the movie. Like I said, I have that one minor nitpick, but like I said, at the end of the day, that's really just a nitpick more than anything else because of budget and whatnot and things like that. I think if you really enjoy horror movies, I would definitely recommend going out and seeing it. It's a great one to watch, especially now because we're a week away from Halloween. And like I said, it just has those great eerie vibes to it. And I love that about certain movies that are able to capture certain vibes. And I think this is a great, October movie to go check out. I'm happy. I'm super happy for Chris. I'm happy that Neon was able to grab this movie. I'm a massive, massive fan of Neon. They have done some really great stuff over the past couple years, and they are almost, in my opinion, rivaling A24 with the amount of like really good stuff that they're putting out for independent movies. And I was so happy that they came along and took interest in his project. I think it's really, really cool too that apparently Neon read the script for this and saw a version of the film and asked Chris that was like, well, hey, what happened to this scene, and this scene, or whatever? And Chris was like, well, I ran out of money. I didn't have the money to shoot those. So Neon gave him the money to go back to shoot those scenes that he wanted to do, and I think that was a really, really cool thing. So hats off to Neon, and hats off to Mike Flanagan. I really love Mike Flanagan, and so happy he was a producer for this movie. I give props to Chris, and I wish Chris all the success, and I hope that this movie does really well. I hope it really turns a profit for Neon and for Chris to, just to kind of build that confidence in him that, the chance that he took was worth something, even though I'm sure him just making the movie and hearing the backers of the movie that supported it from the beginning, hearing their praise for it, I'm sure is more than enough for him. But it would be really, really cool to see this movie succeed. I'm always a fan and rooting for movies in that genre, just like, the success of like Terrifier, for example. I know, like, originally the second one was crowdfunded and it was only supposed to be in the theater for like a week or two, for like a week, and then word of mouth kept getting around and around and around, and then eventually that movie obviously blew up into what it is now. I'm not saying the same thing will happen for Shelby Oaks, but it would be cool for it to at least get some success of that nature. But anyway, that's my review for Shelby Oaks, everybody. I would recommend going and checking it out because, like I said, it is a good, solid horror movie to check out during the month of October. And if you're anything like me and like some of the stuff that I like, or know me personally, some of the stuff that I like, I think you'll really dig this movie. And like I said, just go support the little guy. Go support the independent artists and the independent movies and stuff like that. I cannot recommend that enough because that's something I always try to do. But I would go check it out. It's a good time at the theater. It's an hour and a half watch, and that's that's something rare that we don't get nowadays. I'm used to movies being 3.5 hours, so this is a nice hour and a half watch, and it's just a great October movie. So thank you, everybody, for checking out my review for Shelby Oaks. If you like what I'm doing here, please come on over to the channel and check out all my other reviews that I've done so far this year. I'll leave a playlist somewhere in this area for it. And as always, if you've seen the movie, please let me know what you thought about it. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way I can see you in the next one. Thank you so much.